What is up, everybody? We are back with our team reviews. We are on to the N teams. We got a few of them, actually. I think we're about 2/3 of the way done. We're getting there. We're almost there. It's August 15th. We just had our first full weekend of preseason, so a lot of overreactions coming out and news, including news with the team that we're going to talk about today, the New England Patriots. But yes, keep in mind it is August 15th, and things can change. We're still 2-3 weeks away from most fantasy drafts happening. I think most probably happen over that Labor Day weekend, which is when you probably should be doing it. Dad, New England Patriots, they're not your father's Patriots, as they would say. Not, well, you know the expression.
Yeah.
They're not like they used to be, right? There's not so much excitement with this team, I'd say. You agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even back in the Brady heydays, it just seemed like there was not a lot of other than Brady as a quarterback and Gronkowski as a tight end, and even going back to Randy Moss. I mean, it was kind of hard to nail big fantasy numbers from people, so, it was kind of the running back situation has always been a little screwballish. So, and it just got screwballish again yesterday. So,
Yep, which we will get into. But as always, we approach this from a redraft point of view. Half PPR is what we play, so that's kind of what we base our rankings and stats off of. But you can apply it to whatever type of settings you use. We're just going to get right into the quarterback position, and starts off with Mac Jones. I think it's pretty clear that Mac Jones is going to get the chance to be the starter this year. He did not start in the first preseason game, which is always in favor of teams basically saying, "You're our starters. We don't want you to get hurt." So Mac Jones, Dad, I mean, he had a pretty good rookie year, I would say. People were very encouraged by his rookie year. Just for reference, he was, fantasy-wise, maybe not so much. He was the quarterback 18. He averaged 14 points a game, but he looked good as a rookie, especially, maybe the second half of the season. And then 2022, he was quarterback 23. He missed 3 games, and he averaged 12.9 points a game. Pretty bad fantasy numbers. You want, at worst, your quarterback averaging 17 points. And Mac Jones, his best season so far has been 3 points away from that. So, Dad, any interest in Mac Jones in a one-quarterback league at all as a backup? I mean, any interest in him?
Maybe as a backup to play on a bye week or something like that. I mean, he's got better coaching this year. Bill O'Brien, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He was the coach of the Texans, and so we'll see. Do we expect this guy to be a top 15 fantasy quarterback? No, I don't. Should he be at maybe around number 20? I think he could get there, and but he doesn't throw me too much.
No, I agree. I mean, yeah, I if everyone stays healthy type of thing, I would be shocked if he's top 15. Top 20, I'd be optimistic. Like, that'd be okay. You had a good season. You were the 20th best quarterback, which basically means, like, you're going to get thrown in there a couple times during bye weeks, like you said. I don't know. I have no interest. I just hope he can produce some relevant fantasy, some producers on this team. That's kind of what I want from Mac Jones here. I don't really want him. You definitely, unless you obviously Superflex, you're going to have him on the team. He has value because in a 12-team league, people are going to be starting 24 quarterbacks every week are going to be starting, and he has to fall into the top 24 almost assuredly. But in a one quarterback, I don't even necessarily want him as a backup because I always like to go for a little bit more upside for my backup. Like, my approach to quarterbacks is usually 7th, 8th, 9th round. Grab a guy like this year being like Tua, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, one of those guys. know what I'm going to get type of guys, and then take a shot on like a rookie, Bryce Young, or this year a Sam Howell or Jordan Love, because there's maybe some upside there. So to me, one quarterback leagues, unless you're in a very deep team, I don't really expect him to be rostered. Bailey Zappi is the backup to keep in mind, because he had a run last year where he kind of looked better than Mac Jones. I mean, he didn't look. It just kind of plays into like how bad Mac Jones really was, where it's like the teams were excited for Bailey Zappi, and he wasn't necessarily that good either. But he looked better than Mac Jones at times. We'll see. Maybe he takes over this job if Mac Jones is bad. So he's a name to keep in mind just in case. And then last thing I'll say is Malik Cunningham is an intriguing like dynasty prospect. He was drafted very late in the draft, I believe. He went to Louisville. I think he started there 4 years. I think 2019 to 2022. I think he was after Lamar basically. And he's like a dual threat guy. He can run, and he can run and pass, right? So keep in mind, kind of a deep sleeper there. He was actually undrafted, so just a name for dynasty, I'd say. Running backs, we have Ramondre Stevenson as the RB1. Obviously, we have some news with this team signing Ezekiel Elliott. Was it yesterday or on Sunday? A 1 year, $6 million, I think it was. $6 million contract, which is decent money for running backs these days. So Dad, I'll start with you. I'd say for Ramondre, he was being drafted right around the 2-3 turn, end of second, beginning of third round type of guy. Pick between picks 24 and like 28. I'd say Ramondre was going. Do you drop him a bit after Zeke's signing, or do you kind of still see him as like in that range? You'd be okay with him as your RB2?
Yeah, I think I would continue drafting him in that range. There's always I think there's always room for two running backs. I don't know what we're going to get out of this, like a 60-40 split or 70-30 or 50-50 or something like that. But I gotta believe Ramondre Stevenson is still the man in New England. He had some pretty big games last year, point wise and stuff like that. I think he was in the top 12, 13 as far as running backs last year, and he was I think he was splitting a little time with Damian Harris and but I think he's pretty good at catching the ball out of the backfield too. So
yeah,
I'm still bullish on the guy.
No, I agree with you. Maybe if you want to take him down a little bit, if you want to take a receiver there over him, that's fine. I generally agree with you. He caught 69 passes last year, which was kind of crazy because he wasn't really profiled as a pass catching back. I think it was a crazy number of those. I don't know how many. It was a crazy number of those catches happened on first and second down, and very few of them actually happened on third down, which is kind of where you expect most catches to come from. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. I don't really know what to do with that stat, but I'm still bullish. I'm with you. Even with Damian Harris there last year, who I think is probably a little bit better or at least equivalent to Zeke at this point in their careers. Ramondre was still, even in the beginning of the year, this was before Harris got hurt, 60% of the snaps, 62%. So it was a 60-40 split essentially. And then even when Damian Harris, after Ramondre, Damian Harris gets hurt, Ramondre has a couple big games, and then it was basically his backfield. He was doing over 65, 70%, 80% of the snaps. So how I looked at this, I was actually okay with it. I said, okay, Zeke to me, he's going to get 120 touches, maybe 140 touches this year on the ground, which, even 140, that's not a whole lot. That's 8 touches a game. And the rest are going to go to Ramondre Stevenson. Maybe he takes goal line stuff away, but I don't really see it. I think one thing to keep in mind is they've basically kept Ramondre Stevenson in bubble wrap this offseason. They're basically saying, we don't want you taking hits. We're not going to play in the preseason. You are probably our best offensive player, and we know it, and we don't want you to get hurt. So I think that's a feather in the cap for Ramondre. And Zeke, I think it tells more about the backups, basically. And I don't really see much value in Zeke unless Ramondre gets hurt. Do you agree with that, Dad?
Yeah, I do. I do think he's the best offensive player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
The wide receivers are not, nothing to jump up and down about. We'll talk about them real soon, but I think the offense starts with Ramondre Stevenson, and I think he's going to get the ball quite a bit, and it was kind of you look at, he had 88 targets last year. That's kind of a weird stat. You said a lot of them were on first and second down, so we'll see if that continues. But he's definitely an option. You don't have to pull him out, because it's third down or something like that. But so this guy runs the ball well and he catches the ball well. So let's just hope the team utilizes him properly.
Yep, I agree. But like you said, there is a history of the Patriots and their running backs going back to Jarvis Green Ellis and Stephen Ridley, LeGarrette Blount. And
jeez.
They're just, they always just seem to, Danny Amendola, they just kind of wrote. It was like every year you never knew what to. That was the whole thing with fantasy and Patriots. But if you've been playing since the mid 2000s, it was like you can never count on whatever Patriots running back was the man last year. You can never count on it this year. So, or this coming year. But we'll move on. Like I said, I think the Zeke Elliott signing tells more about Pierre Strong, Ty Montgomery, J.J. Taylor. For all those Pierre Strong dynasty guys, you got to be hurting because you thought, all right, maybe he's going into his second year. He's going to be the backup. Well, they brought in Zeke, kind of tells you what they think about Pierre Strong, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll move on to the receivers. For me, Dad, there's only one guy that I'm interested in this entire receiving core. I'm curious as to your take. The highest guy being drafted is Juju in half PPR. He is going wide receiver 47, 117th overall. It's at the end of the 9th round. Any wide receivers you are interested in for this team, Dad?
I'm not. I just think these guys, and it kind of goes back to Mac Jones and maybe the offense or something like that. And, some of it's unfortunately to be determined, wish we had a crystal ball. Juju is probably the most, recognizable name as a decent wide receiver and stuff like that. But the other two guys and Juju, I think they're a jag, just another guy. So, Juju in the 9th round. Is that what you said where he's going?
Yeah, end of the 9th, almost in the 10th.
Okay. I could he's probably going to get a lot of attention, in the passing game, so I can see it.
Yeah. He kind of fits what Mac Jones does, that kind of dinking and dunking. That's why Ramondre has 90 targets almost, dinking and dunking. That's Juju. Juju had a decent year last year it was with the Chiefs. He was wide receiver 29, 9.1 points in half PPR. Nothing to write home about, but we just talked about it. Almost at the 10th round. And again, it's wide receiver 47. So people are saying he's barely a wide receiver 4. And I'm thinking about it and thinking, if this guy's healthy all year, there's no way he's worse than a wide receiver 3, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's going to win you leagues, but he's just going to be a solid flex wide receiver 3 bye week type of guy. Look at what Jacoby Myers did last year with this Patriots team, and Juju's basically replacing Jacoby Myers. I mentioned it when we talked about the Raiders. Jacoby Myers last year averaged more points than Michael Pittman, Christian Watson, Garrett Wilson, Marquise Brown, DJ Moore. Like, Jacoby Myers had a solid year last year. He was wide receiver 28, missing 4 games. He was probably more good. He was going to be more like wide receiver 18 last year if he played all his games. And I think Juju's just kind of stepping right into that role. And so I'm looking at it like, this guy's being drafted as a wide receiver 4, and I think at worst he's a wide receiver 3. Like, I'll take that value definitely for Juju. So he's kind of the only guy I'm interested in. Devontae Parker, we've seen one good year out of him. I know they gave him a bunch of money, but I think that like essentially like freed up cap space, I think, for this year in a weird way. But, you know, Devontae Parker was like, he was drafted 14th overall. I don't think a lot of people remember that. It was always like, makes these spectacular catches, like, oh, the potential. He finally hits, which guys with his profile do tend to hit at least once, and then everyone's been kind of chasing that. It was 2019, his big year, and his best year since then, he hasn't even had 800 yards. So not excited about any of these guys. Maybe Tyquan Thornton, second-round pick in 2022, was kind of hurt last year, can make some catches. I know Demario Douglas has been a rookie that's been making some names in training camp. To me, these are all going to be like, if they do hit, they're going to be waiver wire guys, in my opinion. So, agree with that, Dad?
Yeah, definitely. It's not much to talk about. Juju did have, in Kansas City, had a pretty respectable year, almost 80 catches and touchdowns. He only had 3 touchdowns, but he's probably going to be. The guy's only still 26 years old. Seems like he's been around the NFL forever, and so
he's the perfect example of a guy who really outplayed himself in 2018. He had a huge year, 1,400 yards, 111 catches, 7 touchdowns. The Steelers that year threw the ball like a crazy amount of times. I think number 1 in the league. I think Antonio Brown was still there and had a really good year as well. Like, it was just, he's just a perfect example. It was just one of those guys that absolutely overplayed probably what his skill set is, and then was being way overvalued the 2 years after that, 2019, 2020. And he's finally at a spot where you're like, okay, I'm fine with Juju now because I'm using a 9th or 10th round pick on him. And I know he's going to give me, he's closer to that 80 catch, 900 yard season than he is a 1,400 yard season. So he's finally fallen back to where like, yep, I'm fine with Juju again. And I kind of know what I'm getting with him. So I agree with that. Tight ends are the last thing to talk about. We have 2 really to talk about on this team, Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Surprisingly enough, Mike Gesicki is being drafted over Hunter Henry, which kind of surprised me a bit. I have Hunter Henry here as the tight end 1, kind of on purpose. Mike Gesicki, again, none of them are really being drafted. 194th overall is the overall spot. He's being drafted as a wide receiver 22, tight end 22. So he's, again, very late round picks, 16th, 15th, 16th round pick. But I'm very surprised that Hunter Henry is lower than him. Do you agree with that, Dad? Do you think Mike Gesicki is the tight end to have on this team? Or
no, I don't. I think as of today or yesterday, he separated his shoulder, by the way. So,
I missed that.
But I always thought Hunter Henry was I don't want to say him the best tight end. He just seemed like he's the number 1 option here. So, I mean, they both can catch the ball pretty good, and But I think Hunter Henry is, you know, again, here we go. This is, the Patriots, the Patriot way. We don't really know
Yeah.
what's going to happen here. All we can do is guess and anticipate and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah, what the hell?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I missed the Gasecki news. I'm looking at it now. Apparently, it's mild dislocated shoulder, so they expect him to be back. They don't know exactly when. Um, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think Hunter Henry, if you want a tight end from this group or from this team, it is Hunter Henry. 3 straight years, Hunter Henry was a top 12 tight end in half PPR. Um, 2019, 2020, 2021. And then you look at his 2022 numbers, they're not that far off from what he did those previous 3 years. I think you can kind of pencil in Hunter Henry for 60 catches, 600 yards, and he has touchdown upside because he's Mac Jones's guy in the red zone. We saw that their first year together, 9 touchdowns. So I think you have some touchdown upside. And again, we're not talking about Hunter Henry going to win you leagues. We're talking about, all right, take a shot on a couple tight ends at the end of your draft instead of overpaying for an Evan Ingram or Pat Fryermuth. Take a shot on Hunter Henry and someone else. And one of them hopefully hits for you. So I would not be surprised if he's a top 12. I think the reason people are going for Gesicki, it's kind of like why people were going for Jonnu Smith last year. They thought, oh, okay, Jonnu Smith's going to play more of the slot receiver role. Hunter Henry, the traditional tight end. That's going to be more favorable for Jonnu Smith. And we saw how that turned out. Jonnu Smith's on a different team now. After 2 years with the Patriots, never had more than 300 yards. That didn't pan out. Another thing is Gesicki's big year in Miami. That was when they had the kind of the Patriots coaching tree there. And I think the offensive coordinator, who's I think back on the Patriots, or he came from the Patriots system. That's when Mike Gesicki kind of had 2 of his bigger years. So I think that's what people are excited about as well. So I'd still go Hunter Henry though, in my opinion. Patriots are pretty easy, I'd say. Anything you want to say else on the Patriots, Dad? I mean, it sounds like we like Ramondre, we like Juju, and we're kind of just about everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel, and just I think overall as a team, I don't think they're going to win the AFC East, but they're definitely going to be a very competitive team. So their defense is pretty good. If they can have a good running game, and Mac Jones, doesn't get on the stupid train or anything like that, they should be a very competitive team.
Yeah. One interesting note, I agree with you. They're going to be competitive. They're going to give Buffalo a tough game, the Jets a tough game, the Dolphins a tough game. I think the Patriots were the only team where they only have 4 players basically being drafted in fantasy football. It was the guys we talked about. It was Mac Jones. It was Ramondre. I guess Zeke will probably be added to that list now, but it was Ramondre, it was Juju, and it was Mike Gesicki. Those were the only 4 that were really being drafted. Everyone had like an ADP past like round 18 or 20 or something. So it just kind of shows you this team, no one's really excited about them. And, but they'll probably be a solid team, like you said. So we're going to finish up there. As always, like the video and subscribe. We're moving right along. We'll be back with a slightly more interesting team in the New Orleans